to rest in God, I have to trust God. There's a thing about trust and rest that are inseparable. Hi everyone, welcome to our Webisode. The Webisode today will be around the topic of rest, or the promise of rest that God gave to His children. On the weekend, we had Pastor John Hunt, our state president, speaking in our church, and he spoke a wonderful message around this topic of rest. In actual fact, I think we all said that we had never heard anyone ever preach about this topic quite like that before. It certainly gave me, I certainly had an insight into the topic afresh and deeper than I've had before, and it's caused me to consider and think how I address my own life. So yeah, it was a great day. What did you think, Fitret?
Yeah, it was excellent. Great message, and I think you also have to take it away and also look at many scriptures and open them up as well. I think some places were deep, where you have to go and really dig into it and get it really, and understand it. I think that's the most important thing. But today we're going to help you a little bit to, as you open in your circles, we had a circle leaders circle the other night, didn't we? And we actually did this message at our circle. But what was really great, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed the gems that come out of the circle. Even when we broke up into 3 little circles, and just what was coming out of it was really good. So we'll probably share some of those things in as we go. So the points that Pastor John shared was external rest, internal, and eternal rest. So let's talk about external rest. You're the expert, Adem.
External rest, no doubt, is to do with physical exertion. Sometimes it's not physical exertion, sometimes it's just long hours. Sometimes it's hard work with a lot of sweat, other times it's not. But it's to do with external rest, and all of us need it. God created us to rest. Part of the external rest is to know when to stop and slow down, or even take a breather. And certainly the night was made by God for people to sleep and rest. And we're living in a day where, in reality, we've turned the night into day because of electricity and lights and street lights and partying and all kinds of institutions for fun and games. And I know casinos don't never turn their lights out. They don't even have clocks, so they want you to keep going. A lot of things are like that today. But God created the night for rest, particularly. In certain cultures around the world, they actually have a siesta in the afternoon. They work hard, they start early, and they finish late, but then they have a little nap.
Midday, after lunch.
Just after lunch, yeah. I mean, my picture in my mind...
20 minutes? Your dad?
20 minutes, yeah. My dad used to do that. 20 minutes, he'd be an early riser, go to work, do a lot of work, and after lunch, he'd have lunch and then have a bit of a siesta. That is when I was a boy, we would make a lot of noise. Unfortunately, he wasn't really happy about that. But we realised that there's a real need for our physical bodies to recover, and just to stop sometimes in what we're doing physically.
That's true. I don't know if anyone's ever, I'm sure people out there would have experienced this, but I remember, sometimes when you've had a really big day and you might go home and fall asleep, and you wake up and you actually think it's the next day. Have you ever experienced that?
Probably a few times, yeah. I
woken
I know
up
that
maybe
feeling.
10 o'clock and think, oh, it's Sunday.
Is it already the next day?
You can't, I don't know, I'm sure people out there would have experienced that, but I think it was really important. He was talking about God, how God created for 6 days, and on the 7th he rested from all his works. I think that's really important, hey? Why did God rest? Did he need to?
It's a good question, because he certainly didn't need to recharge his batteries. He wasn't worn out, he wasn't tired, but it's, the reason, I believe, the primary reason for resting, that for God, I'm talking about, not us necessarily, but maybe we need to pattern ourselves after God.
Yeah.
It said that he actually, every day, but on on the last day, and I think he reflected and enjoyed the work of his hands.
Yeah, I think that's the key.
I think that's it. So when we work, do we really enjoy the work of our hands? Do we sometimes just stop and say, that is really good? Because God did.
I'm such a good cook.
Every day, and you are a good cook, Fitret.
That's that man, the guy on TV, he's Italian, and he goes, I can't believe I'm such a good cook. But maybe there's something in that we enjoy. We're speaking life over what we create, so we're kind of makes you happy when we always laugh when we say that. So maybe God did that too. Yeah. Maybe he had a laugh and look what I've done. Yeah, look, I think, every day God said, after he created, it was good. And he said it was good. And then on the last day, when he made man in his own image, very good. He said it's very good. Yeah. So that was the end of the 6th day from what I remember. So the 7th day, it just says he rested. Doesn't tell you what he actually did. But I think because he finished every day with it's good, it's good, it's good, and it's very good. Yeah. Something tells me that God actually somehow just laid back and said, I love what I've done. Of course. And I wonder whether that's a template for us to consider. That we sit back and go, wow, look what we've done. But he did it every day though. So there's a picture there that we should rejoicing. At the end of the day, rejoice in what you've done. That maybe is part of like physical, maybe it says something to your body. Like when some people go around and they huff and puff and blow the house down. Yeah. But maybe it's something that we got to look at, like when we do a day and we can finish the day and go, that was good. I wonder what it does physically to your body when you do that. I have to admit that I don't really do that. The closest I might come to is I do give thanks to God, but that's not necessarily me appreciating the work of my hands. So maybe when the day ends today, we should go, wow, what a great day. Look what we did today. This could be the beginning of great things to come. Changing something in our life. I think that message was a life-changing message. Yeah, I know. I love when Pastor John said he doesn't need to recharge, but God does. I know Pastor John said also he doesn't sleep nor slumber. He's different, isn't he, to us? Yeah, he doesn't, and yet we do sleep and slumber, but God himself doesn't need to lay down and have a bit of a nap or an afternoon siesta. He doesn't do that. The God of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps, and I think that's incredible that he does that. But for us, he has created us to have a sleep, so that's fine. That's how he created us. There's no condemnation in that. But I think the fact that God himself took that 7th day to rest. Rest wasn't like that feet up and lounging around. Yeah. Rest was enjoying, looking at all of his creation and thinking, wow, this is incredible. And he was rejoicing in the work of his hands. But also I believe that he set an example for us to follow. Yeah, that's what's really hit home. I think that to me is the big argument, there are people, I'm not arguing about it, but there are people who argue about do we rest on the 7th day, do we rest on the Sunday, which is not the 7th day, it's the 1st day, or the 8th day. People have debated that sort of stuff forever. But, in essence, when God rested on the 7th day, it was to show us that there is a rest for God's people. Yeah. When the law came, and it only came to the Israelites, he gave them one of those 10 commandments was the law of the Sabbath. On the 7th day, you shall rest. And that was actually not the actual thing that God was aiming at for all of humanity, but that was a type and a picture that there was a rest that was coming to all of humanity who will follow God. And it wasn't based on a particular day. It was based on a relationship attitude, a heart relationship, a heart of thanksgiving, a heart of appreciating what's been done, that we can also lay back and say, it is good. Yeah. There's a place of rest. Something in that, eh? There is. I don't know, I can feel like God just breathing on that. Absolutely. So at the end of the day, we're going to say, that was good. No, I really like that. I think that's really powerful. And, it's important for us, like he said, physical rest. If you're a nana or Jushy or a papa. You need to have like that rest, like you talked about your dad. But, you know, sometimes people could just keep going and their body's like, you know, I know Saturday when I went home, I think I slept for about 5-6 hours. Woke up at 10 o'clock and then couldn't sleep because your body has enough. But it's important to make sure we do rest and make sure that I think that's a key myself, what we just, that we need to say it's good, it's very good when we complete something. I don't know, it does something to your spirit. So going on from there, and I think it's important too, the external rest. Pastor John talked about the children of Israel, how what stopped them? Disobedience. You know, here they were in Israel, slaves, and, you know, they had hard taskmasters over them, but also there was only a 3-day journey, and what was meant to be 3 days took them, 40 years?
Look, some say it was more than 3, even if it was 2 weeks. It doesn't really matter. It just went on forever.
I know, it was like
40 years.
A long time. And I loved how God said, tying up with our something strong, something sweet, God told them, he said, I'm taking you to a land flowing with milk and honey. I think that's like amazing too. So there's that honey again, the sweetness. And I think that's really important as well. But going on from there, then he talked about internal rest. So do you want to just speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, maybe just before we do that transition, I was just going to make a comment about they were in Egypt for 400 years, actually about 430 years.
Yep.
And they had become accustomed to, nobody had any memory of what it was like to be free. Because 1 generation, 2 generations, 3, 4, 5, 6, we don't know how, 400 years, nobody had any idea.
Lot of years.
And all they knew as slaves aren't given benefits. Slaves, you wake up in the morning early and you work till the sun goes down, because they didn't have lights as we know them today. So they had no idea what it was to stop. None whatsoever. They would just work, and many of them died in the mud pits, they say, where they was with their feet, they'd mix the straw and the mud to make, and others made bricks. Many of them died in those pits. They got sicknesses, they got diseases, their bodies just gave in.
Didn't they, as they went on, they made it harder?
Well, Pharaoh did when the Exodus came. And when the time came for the Exodus, he said, oh, you want to do that? I'll give you more work to do. Then you can go and get the straw at night and make the bricks in the day. Yeah. So they knew nothing.
So he added more
Well, the labour got worse. It wasn't now just day.
No,
he said at night. At night time you go and get the straw, and daytime you make bricks.
So no rest.
So when your day of affliction is increasing, it's possibly a prophetic sign that your deliverance is very near. So don't give up. If you're in a place where you feel like you're enslaved and you can't. It gets
tougher.
It's the day of deliverance is near. So when they went into the Sinai, into the wilderness, which was only I think it may be a 2-week journey. Let's call it 2 weeks. It wasn't going to be something that couldn't be done. But Moses gave them 1 day off. And I reckon that must have been like a shock to the system. They probably woke up early, like your body clock's ready. Where are we going today? What are we got to do today? How are we going to do this today? And somehow they realised that, it's a Sabbath. We can rest. So there was a transition in thinking physically. Now, I said we move on to the internal. Not only had to adjust to the external, but now internally in their minds, they're
getting used to having a day off.
Well, all of their lives, they had to look over their shoulders as to their slave masters and and looking. And no doubt, the first day of freedom, when they didn't work, the first day when the Sabbath came, they would have been looked like, are they we got to do something? Because their bodies, so internally there was no rest. The body had stopped, but in their emotions and thoughts and ideas of what we used to do. And so I picture the first Sabbath after they marched out of Egypt. They probably woke up, okay, no one's allowed to work, everybody stopped. But inside, they'd be thinking, is this real? Is this real? Can we really, no one ever told us we could ever stop. So I can picture that internal turmoil absolutely roaring on the inside, and even in fear, looking for their task. Was this a joke? Was this just a little trial run? Now we're going to get whipped into even working harder and harder than we ever did? And it never happened.
Yeah.
They were actually free.
And yet they didn't. They still, some of them through disobedience, didn't find that rest. So that's probably for us that we have to be really careful, don't we, to make sure we enter the rest in different ways that God has.
I think one of the words that came to me, and I don't know if Pastor John mentioned it, but when something connected for me, at least along these lines, that to rest in God, I have to trust God. There's a thing about trust and rest that are inseparable. If you put your full trust in Him, you can rest in Him, saying, I'm not under pressure, I'm not being whipped and driven. I actually, instead of not just rest, but what about the beautiful word nestle into God? When babies or children nestle into a mum or a dad, and
They're
they hold
safe.
them, they just feel so comfortable, they feel so safe. They're not vulnerable to the devil or the enemy or the slave drivers and so on. So there's a nestling in God, means I trust you. I trust you. I believe that you will look after me. I believe that everything's okay when I'm with you. And no parent will drive their children. No parent. Children got to do their tasks, but no parent is there driving them till they drop.
I hope not.
And they don't. Well, they shouldn't. And I don't think they do. But our God is the same. He doesn't drive us to work to the point that we just can't do anymore. We're like slaves.
And I think it's important too, the 3 points that Pastor John gave. I think about Jesus, he said, I come to make you whole, body, soul and spirit. And that covers the three, doesn't it?
Areas, yeah.
Like the body is the external, the soul is internal, where the battle is and all of that. And then your spirit is eternal. But I really like what he said about, and I think it's important that it would be great in your circles to talk about this, like the internal, how do we rest internally? And he was talking about the day we're living in and how the stress, people taking their lives and, we need to look at it across all the, generations, when we talk in circles, how do we actually take that rest? Like at our circle on Sunday night, our circle leaders circle, Michael Ave brought a really good point about internal, about when we do need that internal rest, what do we go to? Like we could go to social media to feel like that we're getting, let's look at what's happening in so-and-so's life. But I thought that was really good. He shared that, but also Pastor John talked about the Word of God, how we must go to the Word of God, where it says it's sharp, it's powerful. It goes to the bone and marrow, dividing, and I thought that was a really good point. I saw that from another light. But internally, talk about it with your people around you in your circle. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that internally, the external, and I can't see your internal, what you do internally, but God does. So He's got to be welcomed into our thoughts. When we go through something, how do we cope? Like, if you're going through a hard time internally, what if somebody hurts you? I just want to encourage you, one of the things that I do, I don't always cope with, if somebody did something nasty, right, to me, I don't cope immediately go, wow, that's just thing, I'll just think. I process it, and that's how I process it internally, that externally I'll be fine. So I'm big on guard your heart. And you know what? We can guard our heart and somebody will come along and do something to you. We've got to go back to the Word of God. If something happened to me today, external, internally, I must go to the Word of God and process, and however long that takes. Sometimes it takes me a day, but I process that through God and the Word of God, and He helps me to actually make sure that I'm not carrying that in my life. So that's really important. Covers stress, depression, all of those things that we face at some time or other in our life. And a lot of young people, I'd encourage you, instead of sometimes maybe picking up social media and looking at everyone else's profile, pick up the book, someone said once, not Facebook, but the book, the Bible. Pick it up, read about God, learn about who He is and how He can help you, because He's there to help you. And I think that's important for us today, the generations today, to really look at how we deal with things internal, that internal rest, because we're all going to face things. Yeah,
you've got to put your face in the book.
In the face.
And instead of checking out other people's profiles, the Bible is God's profile.
Yeah.
So check out His profile. Yeah. It's far more interesting
than anyone else's.
Yeah, and I think the internal rest. You touched on the Word of God, to be a person who's regularly in the Word.
Yeah.
I think of Daniel in the Old Testament, book of Daniel, but Daniel the prophet. Daniel, he specifically stopped 3 times a day. And, I don't, it doesn't mean that he didn't pray through the day, just himself and God, just in his work he continued, because Paul says pray without ceasing. But Daniel specifically stopped to pray, and no doubt whatever books were available in that day, he would have been into the Word of God, because he was a godly man, and you don't become a godly man without a godly book. The book told him how to live, but he kept himself from all things simply by maintaining that connection. Now, if you think that you can survive on once a week, you're sadly mistaken. He stopped 21 times a week, 3 times a day. And 3 times a day says that, we're not that good, none of us, no matter how good you think you are, no matter how gifted you are, no matter how educated you are, you're not that good that you can do better than Daniel. I just talk to God in the morning for 10 minutes. Daniel stopped 3 times a day, morning, noon and night. Yeah. And he kept that connection going to keep his life pure internally and clean. So I think it's important to be in the Word of God and have your relationship with God. Keep talking to God. Make time for God. If it's noon, it might be 5 minutes, but stop 5 minutes. Everybody has a lunch hour. Well, have a spiritual lunch hour as well. And just keep yourself in God throughout the day. Yeah.
And I think that Psalm 119 talks about that, a lot about the Word of God, the statutes of God, the commandments. Important to know the Word of God, not just think on the same thing, but we got to expand in our own lives. And I think his last point, eternal rest, we know that there is a rest coming to all of us that we often talk about. We talked about it at our circles the other night, and I really like Delma brought up something as we broke up in our circle. He had that about the dividing of the sheep and the goats, when God will, he says that he gathers and he'll divide, and it's all based upon what you did and didn't do. And then I really like that, because Delma said that part of that says enter your, he speaks to the sheep and says enter your rest.
Good and faithful servant.
Good and faithful servant.
Enter your rest.
That's what we're looking for, aren't we, too?
Yeah.
We know that in eternity, we think about things, but there'll be a rest from burdens, from pain, from tears, all those
anguish,
things that
mourning,
grief, depression.
It won't be there. Death is gone.
Is gone. Everything's
Sickness.
gone. So that.
No doctors, no hospitals, no dentists, no ambulance,
waiting,
no emergency services.
No.
All gone.
All gone.
All 000 numbers.
So all of those people
911,
that work in those areas will be happy, but
they will
while
be happy.
They're here, they're gifted and that God uses them. But we're all looking for that eternal rest, and it's found in God, and He's the door. He's the one that waits for us to, He stands at the door and knocks at the door of your heart, so that you can open that door and allow Him in. So at this time, we want to encourage you as you are in your circles throughout the week, and want to encourage you to believe God, to be fruitful, that you'll also raise up leaders in your circles, and that you'll have a great time opening up the Word of God. And remember, the Word of God is sweeter than honey and the honeycomb, and we're believing that you will, as you facilitate and as you sit around tables, that you will also make some honey and pass that honey on to everyone. So it's great being with you, and we are so excited to hear what's happening in the circles. So we want to say God bless, and we'll see you soon. God bless.
God bless.
Thank you for joining us here on the Roars YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and if this has blessed you, feel free to share it with your friends and family. We look forward to seeing you next time for another glorious gathering.